Hi everyone,
Again.
Alena from Arcadier here. Today on Inspire, we have Marco Torregrossa. Marco is the CEO at Euro Freelancers, a curated marketplace for consulting and legal services on demand. He is also Secretary General at the European Forum of Independent Professionals, a former policy officer in the EU Commission, and a lawyer by training. He has a great passion for how freelancers in the platform economy and blockchain decentralized networks can enable and disrupt markets and regulations. Hi, Marco. It's so great to have you. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
Hello. Very well, thank you.
So maybe you can just tell everybody listening a little bit about yourself and what you'll be sharing about today.
Thanks. So, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. Today, I'm going to talk about how to design, govern, and scale your own freelancers platform. My name is Marco Torregrossa. I'm a workforce advisor. I help organizations preparing for the future of work and build better workplaces. So freelancing is a hot topic these days, and for good reasons. The Upwork 2017 Freelancing in America report discovered that the freelance workforce has grown at a rate 3 times faster than the overall US workforce since 2014. And at that rate, freelancers will represent more than half of the US of the whole US workforce by 2027. On the other side of the pond, the European Forum of Independent Professionals reports that with a 45% increase since 2004, freelancers are the fastest growing segment of the European labor market. Now, given this shift, what are the benefits of a freelancers network? The biggest opportunity for companies is to leverage their own freelancers network as a source of innovation, access unique talents to complement in-house skills, capture new market, and introduce new services. Now, a platform brings benefits for both the freelancers and their clients. It enables freelancers to tap into new business opportunities without compromising their freedom to work independently, and enables clients to top up income without adding any fixed cost. Establishing and maintaining a network of active freelancers is not just a matter of creating a database and a spreadsheet or launching an app. It's much more about the selection of a capable independent workers and grooming the network to maturity, which are both activities that are time-consuming and specialized. Now, freelancers platforms are very knowledge-intensive entities and have inherent benefits, which are unlikely of those of most other type of business, such as the low capital cost and an ecosystem where the market self-adjusts and functions like a mini economy. However, freelancers platforms are also having inherent drawbacks, such as because of a consistent amount of supply, because they need a supply from the beginning, they're very difficult to take off, and it's difficult to control the quality of supply. There are certain characteristics which are common to many freelance platforms. These are listed here. First, project submission. Customers submit the projects which need to be done with category, budget, description, and other details. Then the freelancers create an online profile with their skills, location, qualifications, work experience, and other details. Then there's the project bidding, where freelancers bid for projects and customers invite selected freelancers to bid for projects. Later, you have the monetization plan, where the freelancers platform usually take a commission for the services rendered from either the customer or the freelancers or from both. And finally, you have payment gateways, where freelancers platforms use such tools such as Stripe or PayPal to ensure that freelancers get paid. Now, it seems that no sectors can escape from the trend to become more flexible, not even the well-paid professions like doctors, lawyers, management consultants, etc. But generally, the vast majority of current freelancers platforms can be divided in sites for tech professionals, such as developer or software engineers, or sites for certain roles, such as copywriters, designers, translators, and lawyers, or then very generic site where one could find every sort of freelance opportunities. The freelancers platforms, the current freelancers platform can usually be clustered into 4 groups, which I added to this grid. So you have at the top right corner, you have leaders, which are highly rated by users and have substantial market presence. Then you have on the top left contenders, which are highly rated by users but have not yet achieved the market presence of the leaders. Then on the bottom right, you have high performers, which have significant market presence, but they have received below average rating and satisfaction ratings, and they have not received enough reviews to validate their solutions. Then at the very end of the spectrum, on the bottom left, you have niche. The niche don't have significant market presence. They may have been rated positively on user satisfaction, but have not received enough review to validate their solution. Now, my contention is that newcomer freelancers platforms in this space should first develop a strong market presence and then a strong user satisfaction. So in other words, they should move from niche to high performer, and then to contender, and finally to leaders. Now, there are 4 essential factors shaping a platform, and let's compare this now using the examples of Airbnb and Uber, 2 of the largest digital platforms for services. So the first, at the top left, is a network effect. I mean, all platforms need to display a form of network effect where each additional user on either the demand or the supply side enhance the usefulness of the network for all users. And network effects can be global, in other words, growing supply as broadly as possible, which is the case of Airbnb. But network effects can also be local, so growing supply from restricted markets, such as a vertical or a location, which is the case of Uber. Now, the second part of the chart is unique versus non-unique supply. Now, some platforms offer unique supply. In other words, each offer is different, like Airbnb, and the demand side has to search for the best match. Other platforms offer non-unique supply. In other words, the supplier services are indistinguishable from each other, and demand does not actually care which one they receive as long as it's above the standard that the platform sets. And that is the case of Uber. Now we move to 2-side incentives. For a freelancers platform to function, both sides need to desire to conduct business within the platform and not outside of it. And there are basically 2 incentives to keep transactions on the platform. It's trust and convenience. Customers need to have confidence that any supply in the platform is qualified, and there's no easier way to make the transaction anywhere else. Finally, we have the monetization and frequency of interaction. This is key. The ideal platform should generate high monetization and high frequency of transaction. This is, however, happening very, very rarely. So some platforms are high monetization but low frequency, which is the case of Airbnb, and some others are low monetization but high frequency, which is the case of Uber. Now let's have a look at the various revenue models, and I want to start with the most common one, which is the one where firms that want to start experimenting with freelancers network, they use what I call a linear or subcontracting model. In this model, the firm acts as an intermediary that basically subcontracts the freelancer and rents him out to the client, adding project costs and overheads on top of it. Now, the clients and the freelancers, they are the 2 boxes on each side. They are not actually in contact with one another before the project starts. And this is a model that yields a risk of bypassing. In other words, freelancers and clients sidestepping the firm, the intermediary, and its payment system. Now, after the linear model, you can jump immediately to something which I call a transitional model. And in a transitional model, both the firms, with the firm, which now becomes facilitator, and the client chooses the freelancer on the basis of variable costs for projects without adding any overheads or project costs, and on the basis of the freelancer flexible rates without allowing them to bid. Now we move to the platform model, which is this is the first stage of the platform model. In this stage, business should move to a commission-based, commission fee revenue model charged to freelancers, or even split between freelancers and clients, offering discounts on fees for early adopter freelancers, such as the one that sign up first to the platform. Now, the commission fee can be set on anything around 5 to 20% of the freelancer total billing per project. And my suggestion is usually the platforms may want to lower this fee for larger transaction or for what I call power users, so those freelancers who sell the most. And freelancers, and for those freelancers that may offer different services with a large variety of cost. So in this case, they might consider different commission fees for different service categories. This is the case of Amazon, for example. So this model is used in business to business. Examples are Upwork, Spare Hire, Shutterstock, or in business to consumer, which is the case of Uber or Amazon or Etsy. Now, there's a second stage in the platform business model, which I call subscription. And this takes place only once the freelancer's base grows. So at that point, platforms may combine a commission fee charged to freelancers with a subscription fees revenue model charged to clients. So in this case, the platform does not charge a percentage to either side, but a membership fee to access the platform on the basis of the number of freelancers which are needed, the number of freelancer services needed, or the support tools needed. This is a model which is used by platforms such as Writer Access and Upwork Enterprise. Now, what's important to say here is there's a variety of revenue models that can be used to manage a freelancer's platform, ranging from freemium to subscription, crowdsourcing model, commission-based models, etc. Now, I think that the best model is usually whatever you choose is to be the owner of the transaction and normally charge a commission fee on all services bought on the platform. And all the most known freelance platforms, they usually charge a commission from every transaction. And this model is specifically appealing for freelancers as they only have to pay if they sell something. So it encourages them to list their services. Now, some platforms use simultaneously different revenue models. The case of Upwork, for example, they charge a commission fee to freelancers and a subscription fee to clients. So I recommend the platform owner to do the same only once they grow. So at first, use only one revenue model to avoid lacking focus, but with time and growth, you could combine several different revenue models. Now, about the rate, as it's difficult to raise price afterwards, I mean, usually you should begin with a higher commission fee and then reduce it if needed. So I think starting by setting a fee of 20% would be my recommendation. But now the biggest challenge in getting the commission model to work is actually to provide enough value for both client and the freelancer and avoid them to find a way to circumvent the planned payment system. And one of the best ways to provide value is to focus on trust and safety. Platforms could reduce friction by acting as a trusted middleman that pre-screens both freelancers and clients. And both freelancers and clients should have an online profile on the platform, and the incentives to behave well, since getting a bad rating may ruin their future transaction. And finally, it's important to write terms of use explaining that revenue models are what keep the platform running. And if freelancers and clients who circumvent the system will have their account terminated and potentially legal action resulting. Now, there are a number of tools that you could use on your platform, and I divide them in tools that facilitate transaction and tools that support the freelancers on the platform. Now, my recommendation is to buy the premium version of the vendors' tools, such as the one that I showed in brackets, and then integrate this premium version of the tools into your platform. And later you offer to your freelancers the membership plan you have subscribed to with these vendors. Usually it's per number of users, and let your freelancers access the tools from the platform. Then obviously what's useful is to use a platform, is to build a platform using a digital platform creator like Arcadier or anything else which includes tools with matching algorithms, multi-vendor profiles, or reputational review system. Now, it's true the emergence of online platforms has significantly expanded work opportunities for millions of freelancers. They are an important source of supplementary income for many freelancers. However, these platforms, while they offer a convenient service for many new and experienced freelancers alike, there are also some concerns. So the freelancers platform, they struggle to solve a number of issues and problems that so far have proven incapable of transitioning the workforce to that future and desirable economic reality. So these problems are listed here. But now a new tech revolution, which is called the blockchain, is set to deliver solutions to these problems and help us build what I call the next generation of work platforms. And yes, indeed, the blockchain can work in the freelance economy as well. But let me start with a very quick background. So what happens with platform is that when you involve a third party, you bring three things in the equation. You bring costs, because these businesses have to maintain their own operations, obviously. You bring in time. It takes time to approve a transaction. And you bring in risks, because this data must reside in a central location, which could be prone to breaches. But anyway, for a long time, this model has been the best way to conduct business within platforms. But now, with the rise of blockchain solution, and for the first time, we have a solution to reduce time, reduce costs, reduce risks, lower uncertainty, and do it without any third-party intermediary. And this is what I think is revolutionary. But how does a freelancers platform powered by the blockchain, or what I call cryptowork platform, works in practice? So you have on the right side, you have the box which I call freelancers and customers, who buy in cryptos services on the blockchain, which are provided by miners and app service providers. Now, these people, these miners and these app service providers, they later sell the cryptos they earn as a fees to an exchange that redistributes cryptos in the system. Now, this virtuous ecosystem creates a powerful network effect where more and more consumers want to use the services of the network, which in turn scales the cryptowork platform, the value of the cryptocurrency itself, and eventually the general adoption of the blockchain. Now, there are some very fascinating projects under development that are looking to make platforms connecting supply and demand of independent labor work better for everyone using the blockchain. And here there are a few. And very finally, I'd like to tell you a little about the benefits of this, what I call the cryptowork platform. And I like to focus on the column on the right, which is the benefits for the freelance platforms. And I do that because I think the current public discourse is often focused on the benefits of the blockchain for freelancers. But how about the benefits for platforms, for employers, for HR professionals to transition to the blockchain? Well, I think with a reduction of platform fees, freelancers would likely reduce their own rates to stay competitive, resulting in significantly cheaper and more available freelancers. And also, if the fees are the lowest, and the freelancer has the most benefit on the blockchain, then the top freelancers will seek out a blockchain-based platform. However, the most significant benefit for freelancers platforms is the efficiency of the blockchain and its streamlining potential. So freelancers platforms can run much more efficiently by using blockchain technology, leveraging smart contracts and crypto incentives to manage contractual obligation between customer and freelancers. And customers looking for freelancers will be able to find reliable information about potential hires all in one place, which streamlines the hiring process. And finally, blockchain-based platforms will not have to pay for their own servers, database, maintenance, dispute resolution, or a 24/7 customer service, which in turn brings down infrastructure cost and can compensate for the loss of commission fees. That's all. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure to be with you, and I hope I can answer to some of your questions.
That was great. Definitely have lots of questions to ask, as I'm sure everybody is very curious. So referencing your slides that you shared with us, on one of your first charts, you showed that it's projected that by 2027, freelancers will become the majority of the workforce for the first time in history. How do you see this trend going beyond then? Is it going to keep on growing, or what point do freelancers and non-freelancers kind of find that balance?
Yeah, well, I think the number of freelancers will continue to grow and eventually outpace employees. I think this is where the future of work is heading. I think a key driver of this trend is of declining full-time jobs is that companies are increasingly disaggregating or decoupling work from a job. So in the future, there will be plenty of work, but actually fewer jobs in the classical sense, because contracts, hierarchies, functions, salaries will all be replaced by skills, tasks, professions, and I would say collaboration. So the result, instead of creating a job for a full-time reporter, employers create work for a freelancer to research and write articles. So companies no longer need to create jobs to get work done, and this is revolutionary. I think what's important to say is that around 30% of the average large company existing workforce at the moment is made of contingent labor. And I think lots of employers will create even more these so-called talent pools of tried and tested skills that can be called upon when needed, and that can be used to respond to disruptive innovation or manage change, harness external knowledge, and introduce new services. Now, I think many employers or companies will, in the end, build their own platforms of freelancers.
Very interesting. Companies building their own platforms of freelancers. So that means that their employees are technically also able to work as freelancers, or that they also put out all their work submissions to be available to anyone?
Well, I think that what we're going to see is a symbiotic relationship between employees and freelancers. So that's what I mentioned with collaboration. Yes, that's what will happen in the future, I think.
Very interesting. So what role do you think that this will play, I guess, on an individual personal level? Because obviously with personal development, sometimes when you're fresh out of university, you go and get, more corporate jobs. You kind of learn the ropes from somebody. How does that play into the freelance economy?
Well, I think maybe just to pick up from the last point, I could elaborate about this relationship between you want to become an employee or you want to become a freelancer.
Mm.
I mean, I think the role of freelancers has always been perceived as a competition to employees, but this is not the case because recent research actually demonstrates the opposite. And it's a wider phenomenon that is really triggering more interoperability between freelancers and employees. I mean, freelancers are self-employed, but they do not only create jobs for themselves; they can create jobs for others as well. So they create jobs by increasing the level of innovation and efficiency in the economy by making other projects succeed. In fact, many employees, they actually depend from freelancers in their own jobs. And I've even heard the growing cases of freelancers becoming the boss of some employees, which sounds absurd, but that's where we're heading. And this all works because of a partnership between employees and freelancers, and which unfortunately this sort of relationship, symbiotic relationship, as I called it, has been overshadowed by perception of their competitive interaction.
How do you, or what are your thoughts on, freelancers undercutting each other so that they're more likely to get jobs, and how can marketplaces kind of mitigate that so that it's not a race to the bottom?
Well, one of the how to avoid this, right? That's your question.
Mm.
I mean, you don't have to show how much other freelancers are charging on their profile, do you? I think some platforms are already doing that. They don't show that, and I think that's smart. I think the phenomenon you're describing is very common in specific revenue models, like the crowdsourcing model, where deliverables are expected within minutes, and there's an extra pressure on the freelancers to race to the bottom. But I think the question, somehow the question you're asking is the wrong question, because the right question to ask is not to focus on what the freelancers are charging and if they're undercutting price, but is to focus on the client side and see what is the cost of the project, what are they asking. So I think what platforms entrepreneurs and platforms operators should do, they should help the clients to set up the project cost by providing them with the pricing ranges for specific freelance services. So the project cost is actually maybe set invisible to freelancers. So this avoids a race to the bottom. So the freelancers, they place quotes for each client project, and these quotes can vary. Usually, as a freelancer on these platforms, you have a number of bids per month, per week, which you can expand with a €10 or $10 monthly fee, whatever. And so the platform operators, they should really help freelancers set the right bids and the quote for projects. So they should do two things, platform operators. They help clients to set the right project costs and help freelancers to set the right bids and quotes for projects. I think if you do these two things together, you avoid the problem you just mentioned.
That's a very good point. So I guess in that respect, it's much better when it's submission-based. And I'm curious to know what you would say the biggest shortcoming of current gig or freelance economy platforms are.
There are problems that are perceived by freelancers or by their clients. And some of these problems are rather common to all of them as opposed to what the platform is doing. And one of them is the high fees. The fees are sometimes too high. The transaction costs are too high. Then, of course, every time you involve an intermediary in the equation, there is a mistrust towards a centralized intermediary. And from the freelancer side is usually the issue of portability, or what to do with your data, who owns your data, if you can export your identity or your data from platforms to platforms, which is currently not possible, or it's not easy. Mm-hmm. So these are a number of problems that need to be overcome, and they were also, somehow I described them a little bit in in my slides on the blockchain, because I think the blockchains will provide solutions there.
Yep. So on the subject of blockchain and cryptocurrencies, every blockchain is currently a very, very hot topic, but it's still quite far from being widely adopted or a standard within society. So what do you think are the main obstacles that need to be overcome in order for this, for a crypto work platform to become a possibility or a more normal standard?
Yeah, you're right. There's a serious hype around the blockchain at the moment, and there are a number of cautious warnings that one needs to mention, among which, what will the incumbents and governments do? I think obviously the technology is not ready yet, and it will take years to improve usability. However, some minimum viable products are already in the market, and it's interesting to see where they're heading. I think there are many other obstacles to overcome. I can just mention the energy use, which is unsustainable from the mining. What governments will do with it? Will they twist it? Will they regulate? Will they not regulate? Or criminals may use it, so we need to avoid that to happen. Incumbents will take probably advantage of it.
Yeah.
And obviously there's this thing between how many jobs are you going to destroy and how many jobs are you going to create with the blockchains. Incentives, I think, are inadequate at the moment for what I call mass collaboration. They're still inadequate, and there's a lack of standards. So there are all things that somehow they go around the governance of the protocol, which is not, we're not there yet. However, the internet in the 90s was the same, wasn't it? I mean, it was a little bit of a jungle. So it's your call. Is this going to be a revolution or just a fad? It's up to you to decide, really. I think you don't want to sit on the side of history which is proven wrong. So take a more open-minded approach, and I think the blockchain will permeate more and more aspects of our life in the future.
So my last question for you today, Marco, is what's one piece of advice you'd like to share with everyone today?
So perhaps a piece of advice to companies or to the platform operators. I would like to tell them that they should really invest some time to educate themselves on the freelance economy, what the freelancers need, who they are, what they want. You cannot control them. Just learn. You cannot control them, because freelancers are people. They want to remain autonomous and independent, and not necessarily make a lot of money or change the world. They just want to remain autonomous. I'm doing actually a gig myself at the moment. I'm advising a company and they asked me, can you please revise this job description for a freelancer? And I looked at it. It was a one-pager, but it was horrible. First of all, the title job description is wrong. Then they had some sentences like, you need to be a team player, for example, which is the worst, the most awful thing in the world. I mean, freelancers are the worst team players of the world. They want to be freelancers. They want to be free. They don't want to be a team player, but you see what I mean? So the language they are using, or something like salary expectation. What is your salary expectation? In this job description, it was written, what is your salary expectation? As a freelancer, you don't have a salary. You have a daily rate. You have a weekly rate. You have a hourly rate, perhaps. But you don't have a salary because you're not an employee. So you see what I mean? When I speak to CEOs and I advise them, we are really on the same page, because the CEO, normally they see that the future of work is coming, knocking at their door. But then when you start working with the middle management into companies, with the people that are in charge to draft the job description, etc., they just do it all wrong. And there's so much you could do to educate them. And my advice is, please educate yourself first, and later I can come and educate you. If needed.
And what's one piece of advice that you would want to give to entrepreneurs who are looking to start their own gig or freelance?
Well, that was it. Actually, that was the advice that I would give to employers, because in fact, a freelance platform operator is an employer itself. you are dealing with freelancers. You're nurturing a community. You think of yourself as someone who's providing opportunities. So you are an employee. You are the next generation of an HR office or an officer of extended workforce responsibility, as I call it. So my advice for employers is the same as to platform operators.
That's very good advice. I do think that, you are taking on, as for any marketplace or platform that you create, you are taking on a lot of responsibility for the users that are on your platform.
Exactly.
And you are promising something. All right. Well, that's all that we have for today. Thank you so much, Marco, for coming and speaking with us. If anybody wanted to contact or reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can just tweet at me, or you can just inbox me, the way you like.
Okay, we will share Marco's details with you guys in the description below. Thank you for everyone for joining. Thank you again, Marco, for speaking and sharing with us about.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course, our pleasure. So everyone, thank you again. That's all that we have for today. Until next time, be inspired.